Jonathan Gregory is the Director of Industry Engagement at GS1 US. It's an engagement of apparel and general merchandise. He facilitates collaboration among brands and retailers and their supply chain partners to optimize the use of GS1 standards in the retail industry, with a focus on leveraging item level RFID inventory accuracy. Mr. Gregory draws from his long career of experience and will bring an awful lot to this presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am really excited to be sharing this content with you today. GS1 is committed fully to complying with antitrust laws. So this is a copy of just an overview of our antitrust policy, and a link to it is at the bottom of this page. So in the agenda, first, I'm going to, if I can advance that slide here. There we go. First, I'll introduce GS1 US, and then we'll look at how RFID is adopted in industry. So we'll take a look at basically adoption observations to see how technology has moved forward over the last 2 decades. Next, we'll touch briefly on the importance of standards, which is really critical to be able to adapt and scale. And finally, I'll outline a few resources that may be of interest. So this is a business level discussion. It is minimally technical, and we'll highlight various, what I might call inspirational case study vignettes. And I'm assuming that you're already familiar with the RFID technology. This is also for a cross-industry audience, meaning you should find value in this discussion regardless of what industry you're in. And just a little bit more about my background. So I have 14 years experience deploying RFID solutions in the aerospace and retail environments. So you'll see me draw on those examples. In that 14 years, I would really played a program manager role. So I would start by clarifying the business case requirements. I would define metrics and unpack processes to optimize. And in capturing the requirements, I would then design the systems in coordination with engineering teams and test, train, deploy, analyze, and grow from there. So it was a great time deploying RFID solutions, and I'm thrilled to be with GS1 US as a proponent of RFID as well. So with that, I will introduce GS1 US. So technological societies require technological standards, and GS1 is a mission-driven organization. It's focused on the adoption of standards to enable efficiency, safety, and sustainability. These standards focus on the identification of things such as products, businesses, locations, shipments, and the standards also focus on forms of data capture such as barcodes and RFID. So GS1 supports the RFID data standards, the over-the-air protocol for how to communicate to a tag, and the tag data standard, what is the structure of data that's encoded into a tag, those types of things. And GS1 also defines standards by means of sharing data. So GS1 is neutral, not for profit. There we go. User-driven and governed, is both global and local, and it is inclusive and collaborative. So we are truly industry-driven, and we bring communities together in numerous work groups that are established to solve business problems. So we're really a resource that you should know about us. If you don't know about us, you should really know about us and leverage us to solve your problems. And it's most likely that there are things that we can provide that maybe you didn't realize is available. So GS1 does have a global reach and a local focus. So I'm with the GS1 US organization, or the US-centric office, if you will. And there are another 110 offices spread across the globe with similar country-specific focuses, and then one GS1 Global entity, if you will, that governs the adoption of global standards as they flow through that. So with that introduction, let's pivot now and take a look at RFID and innovation in industry. So this image shows the technology adoption life cycle. On the left, we see innovators and early adopters who are going to be more tech friendly and tech focused. And then you see kind of in the middle and off to the right, kind of a more pragmatic group that will want to see a technology more well proven before adopting it. Now, RFID is a disruptive technology, meaning that it offers a revolutionary and not really evolutionary set of benefits. It solves problems in a whole new way. However, that requires change. For example, RFID identifies items at a item level, if you will. So you might have a legacy system that says, well, I have 10 of this SKU in this store, right? And RFID says, no, I have these 10 individually identified items in store. Can you handle that legacy system, right? And so you're either, consolidating the data or you're trying to track that data because there's a lot of value in item level identification, right? So that's an example of just different kind of basic, not hard to understand, it's not the technology, if you will, it's just the systems in place and can they handle this new robust set of data. So this change or the effort to adopt this new technology really erects the chasm that you see here. This chasm or this gap here is jumped at an industry level and it lands in a niche and it grows from there in industry is what we've seen. So for example, in the aerospace industry, tool tracking is a great example, and I'll get into some examples of this later. But tool tracking really is the beachhead, if you will, of adoption, and then that moves on to parts tracking, and then into work in process and maintenance and baggage and things like that. And so we see within an industry the growth of use cases surrounding RFID, and then you also see one industry learning from another's use of innovative technology. Now, on top of that, I'll add 2 points. First, I'll note that technology adoption follows the path of least resistance. So you always start as a business, you start with the easy lift, the easy win, and then you tackle more complex problems from there. So that's number one. And it's easier to build a standalone solution that has no third-party interaction. But you have to ask yourself, when you build that solution, does that standalone solution scale? Is it standards compliant? Can it talk to other systems, if you will? Especially when you think about the fact that you're encoding data into an RFID tag that's on a physical product. And that if that product's around, you have to live with that data structure for a long time until that product is end of life, if you will. Now, likewise, we also see vertically integrated retailers among the first movers with RFID. Now, why would that be? Well, that's because they have the leverage to make source tagging happen, right? So there are IT and business level elements to consider when you look at technology adoption. And my second point is that times change. Omni-channel operations were not a must-have 20 years ago when RFID was first commercialized, but now it is very much a must-have, as we see in the environment that we're in, right? And also, conscious consumerism has grown significantly. But consumers want to know, hey, where did this product come from? Was it ethically sourced? And so those different elements have changed the marketplace and changed different points of demand that we see pulling adoption forward. So it's not just the technical maturity, but it's the business complexity in the changing marketplace. And so now I'm going to move on. I'll use a few examples from aerospace and retail. So first, in aerospace, you have to ask the question, what is the cost of a tool, right? Well, think, what is the cost of a tool that is left in an aircraft engine or in a plane maintenance area, right? Foreign object damage, or FOD, costs aviation $13 billion a year in engine maintenance and repair alone. Every time a tool is lost, manufacturing processes have to be stopped in order for people to go search and find that tool. And there are a lot of business processes, work processes in manufacturing spaces that frankly are working around the problem and not able to address the problem directly, right? But RFID-based solutions ensure that, first of all, each borrowed tool is associated to a work order and to a worker, and that way you can track down exactly, you can have a much better understanding of where to start to find that tool if it's not returned. It also provides an inventory of the tools. For example, in this cabinet solution, every time the door is closed, it'll check and say, all right, what's in here? And it'll be able to respond accordingly. It can also limit the distribution of tools only to certain accredited workers. And an interesting sidebar, another use case is government-owned tooling. So for major government programs, government would own tools as small as a hand tool or a 500-pound circular metallic ingot that's out there, right? And government auditors really don't like it when you cannot find their tools, and that's a strong motivator for any program to find a better solution. And so really what's interesting is you see a lower IT barrier to entry for tool tracking because tools are already uniquely identified in ERP systems. So you don't have to create a numbering system, or your IT systems are already queued up and able to handle that data. So it's really a great example of a niche space for technology to help. And you think it's not allowing moving parts here, right? You just make sure the tool is back where it belongs, or you track it to a location, right? So it's not a lot of new integration that's required. Now, if we move on from this point, we'll see, one second, we'll see Airbus Industries. If I can advance my slide. There we go, thank you. We see Airbus is another leader in this space, right? And they've received many industry awards for their use of RFID. And you can see on the right, this picture includes a RFID tagged part. So we've gone from tools to parts, right, being tagged and tracked. And Carlo Nizam was the former head of value chain visibility and RFID at Airbus. He's now the CIO of Airbus India and South Asia. And I love this quote from his 2010 keynote speech at RFID Journal Live. He says, "We can't improve what we can't measure, and we can't measure what we can't see or what we don't know. So visibility is the prerequisite for all process improvements, and actually a prerequisite for all business savings." Said differently, he says, "By knowing the things that I don't know, I can change the way I do business today. I can enable a lot of lean improvements." And so what we see here is we're going from tools, which are fairly straightforward, so up to parts. Okay, parts are more interesting, right? They're part of the process and they have a different set of use cases. And now Carlo Nizam is saying, hey, we're using this for lean process insights for a strategic level benefit. And you can imagine the aerospace manufacturing environment being a place of a lot of change, a lot of complexity in that space. And so just to show that movement forward, with that, let's pivot a bit and talk now about RFID in retail. So last year, apparel accounted for about 75% of the 18.5 billion tags sold. That's UHF RFID tags, just a general figure there. Now, RFID raises inventory accuracy from 63% on average up to 95 or higher percent. It reduces retail out of stocks by up to 50% and cuts cycle count times by 96%. And case studies have definitively shown that this results in sales lift of between 1.5 to 5.5%, which is enormous. And this shows improved on-shelf availability to over 90%. The ability to reduce your stock. Companies reported a reduction in stock of 13%, which is a tremendous working capital reduction. Also, the reduction of labor is minor at 4%, but think about this is reducing mundane and error-prone tasks. And nobody wants to go and have to barcode scan each and every item in inventory, but RFID allows you to get that data in very quickly. It makes it a pleasure to do so. And finally, in some limited cases, it's been seen to reduce shrinkage, which is either theft or just bookkeeping errors based loss by up to 15%. That's in certain limited cases. So RFID is really critical for omni-channel operations because you can't promise what you're unsure of having in inventory. Now, of the top 100 retailers, roughly, about 3/4, I think about 77, are either in a pilot mode or in a production mode with RFID. And of those top 100, almost a half, about 47, I believe, have deployed a production solution. So there's a higher likelihood of a larger company using RFID. Through our depth of usage research, we've seen that a larger company is actually 25 times more likely than a small company. But we also have to remember that the small company isn't able or isn't nearly as likely as able to be to influence their source tagging, right? Which is so critical. You really need to be able to get the tag to be the item to be tagged up at source. So again, Southern Fried Cotton is a great example of a small company, first of all, and typically you see RFID deployed first in store for different benefits in store related to omnichannel and sales and optimizing store operations. But here you see a solution that's deployed for the sake of the supply chain, if you will, and by a small company. So it's a great example. There's a case study listed here. Now, what I'll also mention is that Project CHIP, which stands for Chain Integration Project, is run out of Auburn University, and it's supported by GS1 US. And they are digging deeper into this, collecting supply chain, item level data across the supply chain and putting that data into a blockchain and evaluating that. So I have a link at that at the end, and happy to talk about that more if there's more interest. Yeah. Let's see if I can move forward. Sheldon, I think if you could advance me, please.
Sure. Okay, we'll do that. Just say next slide, please.
Yep, next slide, please. Yeah. There we go. And this is a build slides, Sheldon, so I'll let you know. So the top use cases for RFID in retail, first we see optimizing back to front operations. And so think about, I can easily tag up a store, I can use a handheld scanner, and I can scan the stockroom, record that data, and then scan the sales floor, record that data, run a simple report and say, what's not represented on the sales floor? And that drives a pick list, and now I find the things that, now I put the things out there, and now they sell, right? And so that's great. It's easy. I didn't really have to integrate with any IT systems there, right? In a similar way, let's say I'm a footwear company or another company similar to that, and I display items on the sales floor through different pegboards, what have you, and I can use a similar type of solution to say what style colors are not represented by display items on the sales floor. And this is incredibly valuable. It's easy to capture opportunities with it, increase sales with it, and you don't have to integrate to a thing, right? So it's an easy way to begin. And this is often where we begin. Sheldon, if you want to clicking one more time. So adding to that, you then have, once you can integrate to a system, you can say, wait, I now scan the items in store. I have a highly reliable RFID data set here. You can even compare your RFID collected data to physical counts that occur. And that's what we've done. We would tag up, we would RFID count, and then there would be a physical count where they do that annually, where they barcode scan every item in store. And then we'd compare the difference. We'd say, all right, where there's a difference between the physical count and the RFID count, let's go audit that. And we found that RFID was correct in an overwhelming amount of the time, right? And so with that confidence, then you can say, gee, this RFID data is better than my physical count data. And I can use this to say what inventory I have frozen. And what I mean by frozen is I think I have it in stock, but it's not there. And if I'm going to replenish based on sales, guess what? I'm not going to replenish because I'm never going to sell something I don't have, right? And so just being able to identify what's frozen inventory, now I can ship items to the store from my distribution center, and now those items can sell. And in a similar and very important fashion, I have omni-channel information now. Now I can inform my perpetual inventory systems of what have a much better sense of what I have in store. And now I can drive omni-channel sales from that. So it's a huge enabler. And Sheldon, if you wouldn't mind clicking again. Now next, we have the inbound receipts and claims compliance. So this is another layer of effort, but certainly very much a ton of value there. And saying, am I receiving from my brand owner, from my partner, what they say I should receive? And when there's a disparity, how do I manage that? Well, RFID gives you the ability to audit in the distribution center, automatically audit cartons as they come in, right? And so that's a huge benefit there of auditing and being able to have systems in place where there's a lot of manual effort and a lot of energy expelled in trying to work through those discussions with your brand owner. You know, you didn't send me this. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. You know, 6 months later, you have you address that, but now you've had 6 months other things that have queued up. So claims compliance is very big, but again, another layer of complexity of thinking about how do we enable this from a systems perspective. And in a similar way, you have the product authenticity, which is really saying, I want to be able to see these items across my supply chain. So as I stand up other solutions, I then enable these read points that give me more and more confidence in the authenticity of products. Next click, please. So in order to enable all of this, I have to have integrated labels or source tagging at the manufacturing level. Click, please, Sheldon. And in order to do that, really, I'm seeing, or a benefit of that is the manufacturer can now have pick and pack accuracy. So if I'm in the factory and I'm barcode scanning items and placing them into a carton and then printing out my GS1 128 or my SSCC barcode and slapping that on the box and putting it on a truck, I can save about half of that time, half of the labor savings by RFID enabling that. If I already have an RFID tag on the item anyway, I just put it in, and my app, my solution is just counting up. And not only that, but I have the benefit of now knowing exactly what globally unique items are in this carton. And so that's incredibly valuable as a manufacturer, being able to say, hey, I shipped this to you. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. See, here are the exact item identity. Oh, well, that's helpful, right? So there's a lot of interesting use cases there that I'm just touching upon. Now, the top use cases for RFID in other industries. First, I just want to point out that they're just interesting interrelations between one industry and another, right? It's just having to deal with how products are managed and moved in a lot of ways. Track and trace is mandated by the Drug Supply Chain Security Act in the healthcare space, right? And that uses the GS1, I haven't defined the term EPCIS, but this EPCIS application standard. So here you have a 200-page technical document stating what read points and what data is and data sharing is required, which is very helpful in being very prescriptive and showing you what you can do. And there's similar application standards to come, such as in the space of farm to fork. Another area is the pharmaceutical expiration and temperature excursions. And that really relates, of course, to cold chain and food applications, or similar kind of niche aerospace applications, even in tracking temperature controlled composite materials. And for example, there's a case where cancer medication that needed to be refrigerated was stolen and kept in somebody's car in the heat and rendered useless and then resold. And so more important than the product itself being tracked was the fact that the product had lost its effectiveness, right? And it's really, RFID is not just about saving money, but it's really about the mission of an organization as well, being able to use it to ensure that the product you're giving to your customers is, the pharmaceutical elements are going to do their job, right? Other elements, looking at food service and retail, grocery, we have stock rotation and inventory circulation. So again, similar challenges in aviation with tool calibration, or apparel with seasonal apparel management. Certainly different rules about it. And then you're looking at limited time offers in food service, and there's equivalent there in retail grocery, right, with end caps. And similar in apparel as well, right? You have this promotional pairing of items such as hazelnut spreads and pancake mixes, if you will. And stocking that up for peak demand, or limited time offers similarly in the same way in the food service space. And finally, you have the omni-channel picking in retail grocery. So that's fine, you can move forward, Sheldon. So why use GS1 standards for RFID? Well, first, RFID requires unique product identity, and GS1 provides a set of standards that provides globally unique identification that can even be tracked to the creator of the item, if you will. And that unique identity is able to be referenced through different registries. And so your product can point to your organization. And there are numerous related standards regarding logistics units, trade items, component parts, services, and assets. There are over 90 what we call application identifiers. So these are standards-based ways to communicate key information, such as a product batch and lot or expiration date. And these really fall within a context of numerous business-to-business identifiers, as well as unique product identity that you have that's enabling the management and tracking of your item can also be used to connect to consumers, right? And the GS1 Digital Link is a bridge to the consumer. So a smartphone QR code image can be used, or even an NFC tap can relate and have that standards-based data then be used to touch your consumers and establish that connection there. So I've just touched upon these concepts. Yep, I can move that. Okay, good. So I just touched upon these concepts. If you're interested in more, I'll be providing a more in-depth webinar next Tuesday, and I'll expand upon these points and others at that point. And then I'll highlight some additional links of interest. So there is a Getting Started with RFID video series that I produced several months ago. It's really designed for suppliers who've been asked to RFID tag, and it gives them a full orientation to what it is, how do you encode tags, serialization, just different elements. It's a great orientation. So go ahead and click on the links. Go ahead and avail yourself of that. If you're interested in learning more about the GS1 Digital Link, I've included a link there with regards to a bridge to consumers, as well as the Auburn University RFID Lab. Auburn University is incredible. They're a great resource for industry. You know, I gave examples of retail and aerospace. Auburn has a retail and consumer packaged goods side, and then an aerospace side of their lab, right? And I also included a link to the chain integration proof of concept white paper that they've published. And if the Airbus information was interesting, or you'd like more information, there's a well-documented look at their value chain visibility program. And then finally, GS1 US solution partners are listed here. So with that, let me just show you my contact information is here. I'd be very happy to talk with you if you have any follow-up. And Sheldon, I believe there's a polling question. So if you'd like any follow-up whatsoever, including information on the webinar next week or anything, feel free to bring that up. And with that, I don't know if we have time, Sheldon, but if you'd like, we can take questions.
Yes, we do have some questions. Question number one, and that is that, so it's a membership organization. Tell a little bit more about how the GS1 works.
Right, so if you want to sell a product with a UPC barcode on it, you can get a globally unique company prefix, is what we call it. And based on the number of items you wish to sell, or a number of different products, I should say, you would get a prefix with different capacities. And so if you'd like any information on that, I can give you a link to that or share that. So that's one layer, is simply buying a prefix because you want to tag your products or uniquely identify products, but also you can use the prefix to identify locations and business entities, and it's also leveraged for shipping units and things like that. Another layer is joining one of the initiative groups. So I'm in the apparel and general merchandise industry vertical, and we have an AGM initiative. And so that is a dues paying element. That's $4,000 a year to be a part of the AGM initiative. That gives you access to all of the work groups, as many people in your organization as you want. And you can then contribute and be up to speed on all these various work groups. So for example, I'm running a work group on raw material identification. And so component parts, component materials that go into products, how do you identify them based on the attributes? We have an EPC tag placement work group. We have sustainability and packaging work groups. we have a blockchain cross-industry work group. So that's just an AGM space, and then you have other industry verticals as well. And then also I'll mention that there's a solution partner program, and that's obviously for solution partners, and you get a set of materials that relate to that, so training and certification elements and marketing connections and things like that. I'd be happy to follow up with that as well.
And which other work groups are there? Like for you mentioned health and food and general merchandise. Am I missing some?
Right. So we have work groups in the four. Just actually have a list right here, so I don't miss any. We have work groups in multiple industry verticals, and so let's see here. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not finding my list handy right here, but yeah, we have a lot of work groups. Like I said, I focus on apparel and general merchandise, but we have different work groups related to, let's see, product images and data attributes. So there's a whole slew of product attributes that are available, and those product attributes feed into a global data synchronization network, which is basically a catalog system that allows partners to see your product information. So those are the AGM ones, but if you'd like any more information, I have the information, but again, I'm really AGM focused, but I can share other work group information. Yep.
Thank you very much.